y'all.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so I think I figured this out.
Okay.
Yeah. So you hear me and I see you. You
Yeah.
see me.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Cool.
So, good morning, everybody. My name is Trace Nelson, and I'm bringing you all conversations curated by Black food folks. This is our fifth week of this conversation series. We sort of title it "The Politics of Food," and this week I am joyful and excited to be bringing you Michael Twitty. Some of you may be familiar. If you're not, Michael is a beautiful writer and a culinary historian, really a Black historian at large, and I don't know, a brilliant thinker around identity through the lens of food. So thank you so much, Michael. I'm excited to have you here. I'm glad you said
Yes,
yes.
I really appreciate it. And all these lovely people. I appreciate y'all for being here. This is very nice to see. I don't know how I'm looking. I'm trying to get this right. You know.
Well, I mean, you always serving the people, but I mean,
Yeah. I see my little drawing has attached a fan club. People love it when I put up the artwork. They love that.
absolutely. I was like you
So what you want to
early in
talk
the
about
morning. That's the
first?
first thing I woke up to.
Yes, did you like that? Yes, I had to bring Pride Month in with a bang.
Yeah. So I want to jump right in, and I feel like we've talked over the years publicly, but we definitely have conversations privately um, about really sort of how we frame our work. And this moment is so complicated, maybe not as complicated. Um, I don't know, not as complicated as it's been in the past, but it feels so urgent, right? Like the moment we're in feels
Right,
so particularly urgent. And with the protests over the last 5 or 6 days, with just this sort of pressure cooker of the moment of Corona, the um, so sort of folks being home and unsure about the future, and just sort of just this perfect like Tulsa, like just all of these historic moments kind of converging to make this moment particular. I'm just wondering, one, how are you feeling, how are you doing, but also like how you are unpacking all of it through the lens of the work you do.
So first of all, I think people need to understand something. I put out a tweet the other day ago that said the reason I study slavery, and I'm a historic interpreter of slavery, was through food. So I mean, you know, I am I do the very strange and often mentally grueling work of interpreting enslavement. And for some people, they don't understand that if you go to Colonial Williamsburg, a place like that, where I have done a lot of consulting work and interpretation, no, nobody's playing a slave. That's bullshit. It's not about playing a slave. It's about being a 21st century representative of your ancestors. And that's not, and no one's going to there's no live beatings and nonsense like that. Rex Ellis, a black man, you know, revolutionized the way Black history was interpreted at those spaces. Before his time, Black people just shut up. They didn't say anything. They were just pieces in the back, human pieces in the background. And now it's like, no, we're going to tell the story of enslavement, what it meant for Black people, what the Black experience was here. People don't understand a lot of those spaces were majority Black by virtue of where they were located. So I said about this particular situation, Ibaye, our ancestor George Floyd, may he rest in power and peace, that, when you study enslavement, I said, for me, it makes me 3 steps ahead of the cracker. I ain't gonna put it in uncertain terms because I am reading Sojourner Truth and Douglas and Harriet Jacobs and all these people all the time and every WP narrative. You don't think I don't learn some skills on how to evade nonsense? You know, I forget what the acronym is because this thing has put me in everything has put me in a mental fog, and I
Mm.
hate to admit that, but it's true. But there's that whole military thing about evading capture and all that little acronym they have. and little seals or whatever have. That's what you learn from learning your history. There is no shame in that, because it's all about. It was all about. It was all about subverting the will to make you submit.
Mm-hmm.
Repeat that one more time. Enslaved people were constantly resisting enslavement in the kitchen, in the house, in the field, everywhere, in the city, in the docks. And that's how we got out of enslavement. Our history does not begin in enslavement. I know there have been some comments, but I'll tell you something. I know how African I am. We're going to discuss about Africa, because
Yeah.
I can't wait to get back there. I wish I would have stayed there, because they didn't play with the Corona. There was
I was
like bleach water and
seriously, we definitely gonna talk about Africa, but I feel like y'all, I was very concerned because we were hearing a very different narrative than I think maybe you were hearing, because you were in Senegal when sort of
yes.
everything sort of started to unravel, and y'all were did you have to truncate the trip, or was it sort of it was going to naturally end?
We didn't it was gonna naturally end, but we didn't know it. We were going to get back to America thanks to 45. And Derek and Tanya Thomas were on the same trip.
Mhm.
BJ Dennis was on the same trip.
Right.
So a lot of our mutual friends and luminaries. And when we found out that we were possibly not going to be able to come back to America, that was when we just got to Gambia. That was a day that, the ironic part is, the day we found out that we might not be able to come back to America was the day we went to Juffure and Fort James, where Kunta Kinte was exiled to America.
Look at the spirit.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, we got to go back because you started a lot of this work around this simple project around a starting point, right? Plotting your history, plotting your family through enslavement, and you took off on this very crowdsourced, really kind of guerrilla, we just gonna take to the road and figure this thing out point by point. And it's sort of grown in scope, right? Like you've written books, you write, you travel the world, but this sort of Sankofa, this sort of going back to the continent and thinking very particularly about what those connections look like is a big part of the last, I feel like, 5, 6, 7 years of your work. And it's been not just you going, but you kind of taking a collective of chefs, writers, etc., with you. So talk about that process, because I feel like a lot of us are feeling like we need to get out of here, but there's just this feeling of needing connectivity outside of the American context. So can you talk a little bit about the Africa trips?
Yes. So I was supposed to go to West Africa before the book was finished, but the
Mm.
Cooking Gene was finished. And then after James Beard, when everything was real gravy, because your boy took home 2 chains.
That's right.
That's right. And I didn't expect to. I mean, that wasn't a thing. But then I was able to afford to go the year the book came out. And I went with my friend Adai Brown, who started Roots to Glory, to take African Americans back to their DNA homes to visit. And then Senegal was the best place for me to go first for many reasons. It was also Ramadan. It was very spiritual. And I was like, everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs to do this to understand. And I will tell our cousins out there, I'm sorry I haven't been to the Caribbean or Latin America yet. It's really tense. Brazil was one of my goals, but until Bolsonaro is kicked out or Corona gets him, whichever one comes first, I don't care. As fast as they can. That'll be one of my next spaces. I want to go to Suriname. I want to go to Guyana. I want to go to Jamaica. I want to go to Haiti. But focusing on West Africa, I said, well, we're going to travel to West Africa, and we need as many Black chefs in this as possible. By the way, Therese Nelson, I want to tell you thank you for being a guiding light. When the Cooking Gene happened, what Therese was talking about was like me traveling to the South with my then partner to find my food and family roots and kind of document the narrative. I didn't have a book plan or anything in order. I was just trying to go. And Therese Nelson was like, got the Black culinary folks all riled up, told them you need to be on this, got Nancy McDermott, other folks all riled up. So you need to support this brother. And without you, I never would have gone. My life changed because of you. So I just want you to know how proud I am to know you, and how grateful I am. But after that was done, I had to go through the South. Shit, girl, you know. Um, I had to go to I gotta go to Africa because I had been through the South so many times, and keep going through. I mean, I'm not done yet, but West Africa to me is so important, and Central Africa. And I started meeting my DNA cousins, which is even more profound. So when I do travel back to Africa, I'm probably going to Congo because I have a cousin who is directly related to me, my father, and my grandfather through his line. And we have a name, Mufondu, and we have an ethnic group, the Congo people, and we're the Sundi branch of the Congo people. And there are pictures of our royal court and our whatever going back centuries ago with the Portuguese and the English documenting their awful presence in our land. And I met this brother, you know, and the reason why I even talk about it is because we've done an effort to crowdfund and raise money and donate among ourselves. We're not asking anybody for anything. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We don't ask anybody. We want to make sure that we've always crowdfunded, we've always ponied up money between each other to make sure that if a chef could not go, they could go. No excuses. Yeah, and everybody's like, "Oh, I'll get there eventually. Oh, maybe next year." You this Corona and taught you they may not be in next year. You know, and once you go, you want to go again and again and again because it's deep. It's not the place that we've been taught in the West. It is. I never thought it was because my family lived there before I was born, generations ago, in Kenya and in Tanzania and other places. But it's just like, okay, once you go and you get that down, your food literacy goes up because as you've seen, as we talked about, is the first thing that you must do is you must encounter the food culture of Black America, the Caribbean, and Brazil and beyond over there in the markets. And when you just everywhere you go, the black eyed peas, the melons, the okra, the hot peppers, the fish, the chicken, the building blocks, right?
Right.
And for the first time, you go, oh, you knew it was coming because you've read all the cookbooks, you've read the articles, you've been to Eric's, you've eaten Eric's food, you've eaten all these people's food and seen the influences. But I got to tell you, when you go there, it's like, oh wow, eating the food, but then you start seeing people look like you and your family. And then you come back to America and you see people who look like people you saw in Africa. And that's the triangle that makes sense.
So talk about, I'm wondering if you could talk about really sort of more the chef, the practitioners, right? Like I feel like the way we contextualize our industry, like the food space in America, I don't know, it feels like we constantly trying to clear confusion or sort of find ways to speak our truth as authentically as possible because we're constantly having to find it in everything. And I feel like when I hear you talk about the experiences you had there, the truth is everywhere. It's like, it's not just in the mouth of people's bones, it's in the air, it's in the markets. And so I'm wondering about, because I mean, you talk about like finding these women specifically who, I don't know, just these dishes are so center to their lives, and that's a very particular posture to cook from.
Right.
Someone who could sort of talk about that kind of, like that aha of seeing it so overtly.
Last time was when BJ, as a chef for his from Gambia, and we met his mom and family near Banjul, the capital of Big Gambia. And she had us in her courtyard kitchen, and she was just showing us all these different skills, and we had a blast. We were using the mortar and pestle, the standing mortar and pestle. We were cleaning the fish. We were frying. She taught us every little part of the process. She made like a version of chebujin, which is the fish and rice. She made some Creole food. Her background is very unique, but she's Gambians and leads in Creole. So very Pan-African, Pan-West African, but she really got it. And and it was so, I don't want to, so impactful to see her like and treat us and treat us in a certain way that I thought was really lovely. Because sometimes people in the continent have who are working with you as a group that's coming from America. They assume a low knowledge level, participation level.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of like be like, no, I'm here for a reason. This is why I have a purpose here. She with her son and other things. She was over that mountain. She was just like, look, I know why y'all here. I know what we're trying to do. She was so thrilled to see us know certain things and teach us things that we didn't know. And I guess for me, one of the biggest things was teaching us how to make ogiria, or pudding, from sesame seeds. And
Yeah.
she was adamant about showing us every step of the process. And we worked through it. And it was the best food and best occasion. I'm not the biggest fish person, so I didn't do the chabuchet. But the seasonings and everything else, and there's this moment in West Central Africa in particular where you taste the food, and I tasted the food, and I put some of the sauce in the back of my hands, and I went, and these women in Ghana freaked out because they knew that I had a mother who 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 taught me the right way. That it was something, a lot of times in West Africa, you're black Europeans until proven different. And this is why you got to dance. This is why you have to cook and eat. And this is why you have to do your thing. And the minute you do, there's this beautiful sort of like sound you hear, and it goes, easy, Yep. She is one of us. He is one of us. Okay. So there's a video everybody responded to on Instagram of us dancing in the Jola village, or the people in Jola village dancing for us, rather. But what they didn't see was like when we got there, I knew the Jola dance. The Jola dance is kind of, let's just say, physically. You lift one. So you lift one leg and alternate your leg, almost like you're percolating or you're like high stepping. And the minute I got off that bus you dance from the bus all the way to the center of the village. That's a workout, baby. And I knew how to Jola dance. And I just like you lift your shoulders and your body with each knee, right? And those women, let me tell you something. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you, learn your people's dance before you go to the village, so that when you get there, my sister, you will be very fine. You will show them the proper way to do a thing. And let me tell you something, Mr. Reese. Let me tell you something. You would have found your people in the Jola, baby, because them sisters was doing it. They was doing it. I just thought, if Therese was here, she'd be like, with these folks. Yeah. But it's beautiful. And I know everybody cannot go to the continent. I know everybody cannot afford to go. I know everybody cannot go there and live. And even that would be it's very tempting to think that way, especially in times like this. But, Africa is a different scene. Dakar, Kumasi, Accra, you can, it's okay. It's okay. It's not a beautiful place to live. But I realize that everybody can make that commitment. I can't for certain reasons. But I'm still committed to going and taking people and going there often. And I just think that whatever you can do to interact with that part of the heritage is important. Just like for me, the Caribbean and Black Latin America are important, and other parts of our diaspora. We're a family, We have to act like a family. Being a family is our biggest protection, and celebrating who we are and our lives is our biggest protection against the nonsense. People call them protests. I call them celebrations of Black life, as is. People say Black Lives Matter as if it's just about a body on the pavement. No, it's about you in that office. It's about you having safety in your own home. It's about you being able to trace your genealogy without being harassed like I was in South Carolina. They were going to throw me out there and call the cops on me because I refused to have them just sit up there and tell me, well, they were like, well, I couldn't take digital pictures. Well, these archival documents are much clearer when you do digital pictures. They want to let me take what's against the rules. I said, wait a minute. You mean to tell me we built all of this, and the one piece of reparations you can't give us is to be able to come back up in here and document our ancestors?
Mm.
So I mean, it's not easy. Yeah.
So I was thinking about, I feel like it was the Griot maybe posted this video over the weekend, and it was like you sort of consuming social media or sort of media in general now, and sort of trying to manage what you take in and what you sort of absorb, right? There was this video, and it struck me because it was this three men, and they were clearly out of protest or celebration. But it was it was probably a particularly tense situation. And it was this one man, like slightly older and a sort of middle generation man.
Mm-hmm.
They were having this confrontation about like what this was. Like, why are we out here? This is so angry, so like this is so volatile out here. And they brought this 16-year-old boy out. And there was this sort of sense of like, this ain't it. Like, this is not, we look into babies essentially to sort of think more critically now so that we don't have to have, they're not in that posture 10 years from now. And it struck me because I think so much about the way you contextualize history and try and make people think about it in modern context. But I feel like we've been at this a long time, right? Like at least you and I, like, I mean, I feel like there's been like this sort of, we're in this career phase and this life phase where young people are really, it's like this idea about deputizing young people, sort of having our work occupy a space where everyone's consuming it. But I'm really thinking about these babies and sort of how we are thinking about laying foundation for them to think more expansively. And so I'm thinking about like the spaces you talk about in this sort of historical interpretation world. Thinking about the writers that you have used to think through and to sort of contextualize your own work. And I mean, and like you talked about, Two James Beard Awards, a book that is watershed. You're working on a second book. Your writing exists in a space that is expansive. How are you thinking about these young people? Because I feel like a lot of folks come at you in general, like admiring, etc. But there's this sense sometimes that, and I think about when you talk about meeting like August Wilson, or think about like those like people who plucked you or sort of like impacted you, and for a lot of young people, you're going to be that. So I'm wondering,
I hope so.
If you're thinking about that at all, or like how you, I don't know, what you're considering, because I feel like a lot of the intergenerational gap we feel is because in the midst of their own trauma and their own work, a lot of folks don't consider that intergenerational play. And I'm just wondering if that's something you consider.
I think what you're getting at and what you're articulating is that, some people don't dig, for a while, talking about enslavement was a hot subject. But, I think it's interesting that the more it became hot in our hands, hot potato in our hands, the more it cooled off. When it was white scholars and white people, now, it's not about white versus black here, but it is about who gets the platform, who gets the priority, who has the power, who has the money to put things out there at a certain rate. And my argument was that when we talked about enslavement and resistance to slavery, it was always through the lens of this is a challenge to American democracy, and not how black people actually lived, what black people actually thought, or black people actually processed resistance, or actually black people actually got through from day to day and saw themselves through the freedom, or what from that period impacted our lives today. People often talk about it, but some of the things that they talk about are informed by media and social media and not by actual history. Okay? I put it like this. The generational problem that we face is that some of us are part of the last generation to have the grandmothers and great-grandmothers around, and grandfathers and great-grandfathers around of significant age. To pass on things from their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents to us. And it doesn't matter where in the black world you are, if you have those people, if you're hearing that crick-crack, oh no, respeto, then you're able to actually say to your nieces, nephews, and children, and people you bring into your circle or your mentees, look, remember that phrase that both of our grandmothers said, I didn't get to be this age by being stupid?
Mm.
That
Mm.
kind of wisdom. And there's all this other stuff that you got to put in to practice. Now, I know I'm not, I know that I remember when I was with uh, Dax on that Vice thing. It was great. He was great. But he said to me at the end, he was like, well, on camera, he's like, brother, it's 21st century. You don't have to do this. And I'm like, yes, I do. Because if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it. They can do it poorly. We cannot complain when other people have the chair to tell our history if we're not going to tell it. And you don't have it doesn't have to be this I know people get, the look, I'll put it to you like this. I wrote a thing I'm not going to put out yet called The Last Negro. And it's
Okay.
about the celebration that happens when the last person dies that had Negro on their birth certificate. So we can leave
Mm.
behind that part of our history.
Mm-hmm.
But then the follow-up is called The Last Protester.
Ooh. Yes.
So
Yes.
what's it going to be like when it's you who gets consigned to amnesia? When it's kind of like science fiction, right? The idea that, or maybe it is and maybe it isn't. I don't know. That's not a nice thing to say. When we're truly post-racial and post-whatever, what you gonna do when you the last Negro? Because you don't want to talk about enslavement. You don't want to talk about no segregation. You want to talk about no Jim Crow. You want to talk about, forget that. You want to talk about no Africa. Remember, that was a thing too.
Yes.
Right into slavery, it was like, I don't know about that. Yes, they did. Because they all had to pouch around their neck. And they all had the beliefs. But they didn't want to take, So it's a theme in our history of kind of like detaching from the last group struggle and sort of abandoning ship.
Mm.
But that's why we do this. And we have to encourage them. I'll never forget meeting August Wilson. I'll tell the story really, really quick. I met August Wilson at Howard University. I was in love with all of his plays and everything. And at that point, he was about, I don't know, 11, 12 years from finishing his last cycle play and passing away.
Okay.
By the way, I didn't know this until I went to Seattle. Both Alex Haley and August Wilson passed away at the same hospital.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
And so I was like, he was like, hey, you're the young brother who asked me that question at the lecture. And I was really nervous. And I was the first person. I was 18 years old. And he brought me out of the line. He had people out the door. He brought me on. He took me to the side. And he talked to me for 10 minutes. And he gave me the biggest hug, signed all my books. He was like, and I said to him, Mr. Wilson, what should I do? How can I do this work? And he told me the thing that has been my guiding light. I totally forgot about it. He said to me, I want you to go back to the South and find Africa through your grandmother.
Mm.
And I
what
look
age
back and I'm like, damn, that's what I did.
Right. What age would that have been?
Oh, that was 1995. I was 18.
Mm.
Yes.
Michael, I swear to God, like I ask this question because I think so often, like if people think I'm like it's like Pollyanna, or I don't know, like overly like I don't know, it's like naive or like overly sentimental to think through what 18 looks like. I think about it from the perspective of like professional cooking, right? I came to this work thinking very clearly about what I thought this space was going to be for me. And at 18, you are influenced by what's in the zeitgeist, right? Like you just start to dig.
Right.
And that and in the absence of tangible, qualitative content, you are lost, right? Like how are you supposed to know better if you don't have the tools? And so I'm looking at how expansive 17 to 39 has been, how much more writing we've had, how much more fertile the zeitgeist is for these babies. And I just think sometimes that we discount what we put into the world and discount like the fact that we have to be so intentional about it because we don't know who's receiving it. And like I feel like the work you do it in a lot of ways. It certainly senses. I mean, think about the cooking gene, right? The sort of breaking form of memoir, breaking form of what a food book was, breaking form of all these things. But it started and centered you, but it was for everybody. It was thinking about all of our way of figuring out who we were, thinking about all of the points and giving you a starting point to expand on who you really are. Well, that's a hard question. I don't think a lot of us confront. Who are you really? What makes that up?
Right, and I didn't know, and I thought about it for years, and it's when I started to forget things. You know, some people were not happy with certain parts of that, like the chapter called "The White Man in the Woodpile." Like, yeah, I think about it, but more and more as I get older, because of my health, because of my appearance, that some of the things that are showing are because you know, not all of me is African. That's something for being white. You know, that whiteness is a state of mind. European DNA and phenotype is all different ballgame. Like it's not inherently, you know, you don't inherently have a Karen haircut and go to your manager because you're part white. You know what I'm saying? Or European. And it's interesting because some people are like, he is spending too much time on that. I'm like, no, I'm not, because the kitchen was where we became a mulatto people. It was a separate building that Ole Miss, the same Ole Miss they named the University of Mississippi after. Ole Miss couldn't get into. She could fiddle with that lock. But on the side of that lock, her husband was having children with that black woman against her will. The most valuable thing in 19th century America was the womb of the black woman. And I can't take the stories that have passed out in my family, I cannot take them for granted. And also just the narrative. I mean, people who thought, oh my God, he's my white people, did not read the next page. One person on Twitter in particular, who they didn't know their name and I don't care to, said that I was, and this is a generational thing, was like, well, why is he talking about that? He's centering that, and it just shows you how anti-black he is. I'm like, oh my God, you know, y'all need to read something. Because the next page is me saying, when I went to the grave of my white great grandfather, that I did not feel a damn thing, because I was like, I realized how little love, how little anything came from these people except for this idea of property and use to the black body and violation and exploitation of the black body. And so when I had a confrontation at one of my presentations about, well, how do you know there was no love and it wasn't great? And I said, I know, because I done been to the damn grave. I done been to the plantation. I'd been to that space. And by the way, this was an ancestor who was the grandfather of the man who, and I told them, I said, you say that like you want there to be some love when somebody was somebody's damn property. That is an abusive relationship any way you put it. And I said, as a survivor of domestic abuse, you need to get your priorities checked. Why do you want us to feel this love towards somebody who did not love us? If you love me, free me and take me someplace where we can both be free. And we can do our thing. But if that's not the case, and they said, and so I get it from both ends. So the other person was black, the other person was white. And they're both assuming that I'm just lost my damn mind. And I'm just like, no, I'm just nuanced. I said, I have a white fiance and we work through this shit all the time together. We have been up for 3 nights, Therese, watching these things. And I wouldn't be with this man if he wasn't trying to be woke.
Right.
He even said to me something to the effect of, you know, I didn't know how bad it was until we started dating, and I would go into the same store and we have different reactions. And a lot of times he's just like, and he knows when to give me my space to like work through stuff and my space to like give people their business. But there are times when he will stand up and be like, nah, we're not doing this. Because he ain't going to jail. I'm going to jail for killing your ass. You know? And so that's nuance. That's what you have to do. You have to work through stuff. And there are people out here who are trying to be allies and friends and family who just speaking for the first time. And what's my sister? Um, um, Carolyn, from Tennessee. Carol Ann. She was like talking about the one who wrote the Soul Food Love book. And she was talking about how telling people last night, she's like, if you white the
Oh,
first
Carol
time you
Williams.
speaking, yeah, Carrie
Yeah.
Williams, the first time you speaking up, he said, don't. Some of us ain't gonna be too cool. We were like, really? You didn't see that before? It was so beautiful what she said. She said, you got to keep talking, but you realize you're gonna get a little pushback for just finding out what's up out here.
Yeah.
So it's so nuanced, my sister. And with food, this is where it gets just testy. I started out with this whole situation. I was the appropriation kid, right? The anti-appropriation kid. And everybody put that on me. And then I was like, this is not actually where I wanted to start. I wanted to start with that kumbaya mess that y'all said that y'all was about. But you didn't let me in the club. So I was just like, why is my voice any different? Why is my voice less authoritative in food and in food culture and food history when you see what's behind me? Look, this is part
Receipt.
of 3,800 some damn books from the time I was little that I've read almost every one. And I'm sitting up here, I'm like, well, I'm here, I'm ready to be in the game. And you know what I was told by one, I'm not going to name him because I don't do that. One very important thought leader in food. Well, nobody felt they had to pay attention to you. I'm paraphrasing. Nobody felt they had to pay attention to you. So, yeah, sorry about that. And I'm like, okay, so we had to wait for a flashpoint.
Right.
Where y'all thought I was a bad nigga who had to be contained or pacified. For you to accept me as a colleague. When you know I'm out here in these streets doing this work, these fields, these gardens, the bush, doing this work, but only when it becomes embarrassing to you. So that's that protest vibe. He burning down stuff. He breaking some windows. Now we got to have a talk. Now we got to talk about peace, and we shall overcome. And are we all brothers and sisters? Well, I was trying to be your brother and sister, but y'all didn't want to let me. See what I'm saying? So yeah, that's girl, my feelings.
So we doing good on time. Because we sort of Instagram limits it to about an hour. But that notion of like intellectual receipts, like cultural receipts, not so much in the context of like proving anything to other people, but sort of I was considering, and I think sometimes I've been thinking a lot since we've sort of been sheltering at home. This is the first time in my professional life I've had actual quiet time, actual time of not working those 80-hour weeks. Like this is the first time my body has had physical rest. So much interesting happening right now in this moment. But I was thinking about how I have over the years personally censored myself or like stopped myself from specifically writing, but this idea about how you feel qualified and like sort of prepared to do the work you do. Because the receipt you're talking about, I mean, the books absolutely read everything, kind of consume everything, trying to just like sort of decide for yourself, research what the truth is for you, right? But also, right. I think so much a part of like that Southern discomfort tour, the work you do, these historical spaces, these sacred spaces. I mean, you talk about like going into the fields and working from cane seat to cane seat. You talk about sort of the trying to understand these recipes through recreating them like they would have been, like in recreating the circumstance that you really understand the recipes. What labor does to your body, all those things is not this is not a vice for you. This is a part of being like prepared and credible in these spaces in a way that is sort of, it seems anti, like it seems opposite of the way that sort of historians or sort of the academic space really goes, right? Like, you don't see there's not a lot of tangible receipts in the academic
Right.
space, right? That just outside of a very the narrowness of credibility you talked about. So I'm wondering about when the switch happens from defensive posture of trying to prove something to other folks or be credible for other folks, and that switch happens with more for you, and for you to be able
That's
to
a
speak.
fantastic question. Oh my God. When do you go from I need to prove that I know and I'm valid for other people of different backgrounds, different points of view, to being confident in yourself, but also then going to your own school. Your own school. I see you, Felshelt. I see you. Yes, Monticello. My other dig. One of my other digs. But yes, it's like, so you talk about the recipe. It's a quick example of chicken and waffles.
Mm.
Chicken and waffles did not come from a club or a restaurant in 20th century. It's actually very 19th century. And Adrian Miller is correct to suggest to us that it has some German roots. The Germans who came through Philadelphia, came down the Great Wagon Road and spread out throughout the South, and they influenced the food of the predominantly English slaveholders. Black folks did the cooking. The waffle was German. The fried chicken was us. In Philadelphia, they still have catfish and waffles, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
which is bizarre to me. Because But anyways, so I did the actual thing where you go and you say, okay, what's it going to take for me to make this and bring it piping hot to the table? You have to work so fast. And so then I saw something else, saw a reference where they were like, we cooked it in the fireplace. So they would make the chicken, right, in the big house kitchen, but they would make the wafers, what they used to call waffles, in the fireplace of the big house. So they would be right there. Because if you did it from the kitchen into the actual house, they would have cooled off, and that'd have been your ass. That's one level. The other level is how do I make my own food taste good for me and my family if I have to work all day? Who stirs the pot? Who does the work? Who does this piece, that piece? The elders, the children, the folks in the middle. We forget that those meals were constructed by a community, and that when we did the cooking, it was our whole physical body. It's one thing about going to West Africa that you will see is like, from the pounding of the grain of making the fufu to like making the pepe, to grinding it. It takes your whole body. You burn calories. You burn calories doing this nonsense. Hell, you burn calories walking to get that damn wood and bring it back. And that's why the women in the village will take a fire, build it on 3 stones, which is sacred, and they'll move as the food is cooked and the meal burns down, they'll take pieces of the wood and take them out. So they don't have to do that trip for that wood more than 2 times a week. It's hectic. But all that physicality, right? So then you learn that and you put it into your body and go, wow, I'm tired. My shoulders hurt. I've sweated out all this water. Okay, I need to drink more. I need to do this. I need to do that. So then you want to stay on the physical level. So I think on the physical level is where the ancestors are happy with you. Mm-hmm. Then they go, see what it took to get you here? Okay. And then the professional cooks of people forget that we were not just enslaved cooks. We were free people of color, people who ran away from slavery, freedom seekers who used food to empower us and make freedom possible for other people, right? All of that. And we were tavern owners and we were restaurateurs. We were not just in somebody's kitchen against our will. I mean, I make that point all the time. And so then you get the whole skill thing, the pride in the appearance and the taste. Not just any old anything put out. And of course, we both know it wasn't just African influenced food. It was them actually saying, look, you gave me this blancmange, you gave me this Charlotte Russe, you gave me this whatever, and I made it better than you. Right. That kind of power of just like, It wasn't just about adopting and assimilating. It was about showing people that they forgot a step and they didn't even know it.
That part.
That kind of thing. So then
Second
you
part
get all
you
that
said.
shit together, and then you go and you go like, okay, one day you wake up and you go, okay, I done been to the continent, I've been throughout the South. I know I'm gonna go to Caribbean and Latin America. I know what to look for when I get there. And now it's about challenging myself. It's about me going to my own school and going, okay, now that you done got your PhD in ancestor cred, and you got your PhD in no longer feeling that the little white man on your shoulder has any power over you, like James Baldwin used to say, and Toni Morrison talked about. Then you're ready. Then you're ready, and it feels great. But it's not arrogance. It's definitely you. I'm ready to be rehumbled. I'm ready to be
Yeah.
back on my damn knees, receiving my crown.
Mm.
You know, I'm making a deliberate reference to spiritual African religion. You don't start on your feet on some cliff like Simba. You start on your knees at
That part.
the Ojun or the Shah. You know what that means? Also means the face of the answer, the face of the Orisha. On your knees with your hands up. The same way when you make salat in Islam. The same way your grandmother prayed in that Baptist church. With your eyes up and your eyes down and those hands out, ready to receive that new crown. And that
Mm.
is it's not about lording over anybody. It's about perfecting yourself, the endless work. And that's why you need the next generation, the generation before you. The generation before you helps you get the crown. Generation after you takes care of the crown once you pass it on.
Yeah.
Come on now
Yeah.
this morning.
Yes. Okay, so we're about 40 something minutes in. I want to make sure because I've been sort of seeing the comments go off. But in case anybody was sort of saving their questions to now, feel free please to answer. I mean, we could talk for forever, so definitely have other areas we can go if folks don't have questions. But I guess I'm interested in maybe talking about this new work, right? Because I think the Nicole and Asai are going to talk in a couple days, I think Wednesday, about the publishing world and sort of what that looks like. And I'm thinking about how much, I was just thinking a while back about like the sort of restaurant space really not being as effective in defining our foodways. I think a lot of food media people have been looking to like chefs and restaurateurs specifically to use those spaces to think through a more modern, more sort of expansive identity around our food culture. And I don't know if that's necessarily wise. I think that cookbooks, but really books in general, I think about Rafia Zafar, she just wrote Recipes for Respect, and she sort of thought about the authors of each moment, each historical plotted point that really define a lot of what we know about the culture of their day. And I think about Cooking Gene, how singular it was, and I think about the work that you are wanting to do forward, and how all those receipts kind of give you the latitude in the publishing space to say what you want to say. And so, if you could
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the new work and just like what you feel like your writing practice is gonna look like.
It's hard right now because I'm used to white noise when I write. I
Mm.
like perks, I like Dunkin' Donuts, I like uh coffee shops. I like places where people are moving in and out. I'm hearing constant din. And also, like, I had to give a shout out to my sister friend Crystal. It helps having somebody that looks like you, that sounds like you, that acts like you in the background going, boy. She's like, Twitty, are you working? Are you working it? Or are you hardly working? Like every day, in that Dunkin' Donuts. She would make sure I was on my task from 4 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. Yes, so that helps. But now I'm like the shelter in place thing. I like quiet to a point, but not too much. I'm an extrovert. I'm extra intro, and I'm only an introvert when I really don't want to be bothered when I'm deep in them books, and they're my friends. It's like I'm talking to them. So to your question, I had to prove myself. I had to prove that I could write something that was semi-academical, but also had like the contemporary thing going on. It also was personal. We don't have a lot of Black food memoirs. We have some memoir in our cookbooks.
Yep.
We have some food in our memoirs and some food in our fiction. That is not the same thing
Right.
as having a Black Ruth Reichel or, all the other folks out there who have done work outside of our realm. You're all, it's almost like you have permission to have a life that matters. You get me? We're still on
Yes.
that thing, y'all. We haven't left it behind.
Yep.
Black Lives
Yep.
Matter. It's not just the people, it's the stories.
And it's the stories that are going to define the moment in which they live, right? When we look back at this moment and find the receipt of the cooking gene, it's going to tell so much about what we value in that moment. And I think we discount the power of that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to get
You,
to
you,
questions because,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
no, because I'll circle back to that if you feel like there's something on your
Yeah,
spirit.
yeah,
But,
real quick.
um,
Yeah, part of it for me was the DNA thing was happening, but I wanted people to be able to contextualize it. I wanted
yeah,
people, if you get those results, I don't want you to just look at the map one time and go, okay, that's great. I want you to be able to go to your reunion in Latta, South Carolina,
mm-hmm,
and with that rice dish and with the okra and tomatoes, and be able to say, even if something that we come from blank, from Sierra Leone, from Guinea-Bissau, from Senegal, from Gambia, from blah, whatever, and they make the same food there a different way. Here I've made it the way they make it, the way we make it over here. I want all the children to come here and taste it so they understand where they come from. And I want to show them the place on the map. And every reunion, we going to do this. So we know where this comes from. There's a beautiful musical. I don't know. I'm getting a lot of senior moments because of this being inside. What was the Grace the musical?
yep,
And I was in the program with Carla and the gentleman who's writing the music. He wrote this beautiful piece talking about how the original grandmother in the family brought something and it got passed down and got passed down, and talking about bringing the black eyed peas in her hand and holding on to them for dear life. And the poetry behind the song, it made me cry because he got it right. He got that will to survive, that will to remember. People forget that remembering the recipes was one of when I say recipe, I don't really mean like Western recipe. Remembering the food and the culture around the food was one of the greatest forms of resistance we ever had. Because then we took that form of resistance and we made other people, we made them adopt our culture and our way, so that our children and children could remember where did it come from.
that part.
I'm
Yep.
starting to speak in Creole because when I went to Sierra Leone, and I was, by the way, I'm a Sierra Leonean citizen. Tell everybody,
Mm,
I'm the
mm.
first person in my family to have some kind of official foot down in the mud in an African country in generations. So when went to Sierra Leone, I got my citizenship. So I'm a dual citizen. I'm an African and I'm an American
I love
officially.
it.
So
I love
more
it.
receipts.
I
All
love
right.
it. Okay, so Areta Itar, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I'm not sure if you know Areta. She's based here in New York. Her dimples and her face make me so happy. She's been hosting some of the conversations on Black Food Folks. She's sous chef at Gramercy Tavern, so it's like this. I think about her and women her age, especially in these fine dining spaces, and like sort of want to make sure like we are wrapping them up because the emotional labor you must be doing in those spaces must be compounded. But Areta is a genius, and she asked a question about culinary history in culinary schools. And I've had this conversation before. We've had this conversation before. And
Yes.
I'm wondering what you think of, because I mean, you taught in Italy for the food studies program at,
Mm-hmm.
what's that program?
And Slow Food for their masters in gastronomy.
Right. And
Yeah.
if you look at around the country, like the spaces that are thinking about food studies are expansive, but one of the most interesting battlegrounds that we don't really think about is culinary school, right? Like there
Right.
is a segment of culinary history in culinary schools, and they are just definitely Eurocentric. It's definitely French focused, and the points of any sort of infusion of Black culture are typically through the sort of southern regional cuisine portions, if they
Yeah,
exist at
a
all.
little tablespoon.
Right. And so I'm wondering, because I have opinions about this, but I'm wondering what you think as a person who will probably be the one of the folks called upon to write curriculum, that kind of thing. What you thinking about the sort of culinary school space to be
So
impactful in thinking
yeah,
about?
so we have to do it, right? We have to do it. We have to make sure that I think Latin America gets some attention, but what I'm afraid of is that the the feeling and the meaning, the history, the experience. Like for example, there was God. I wish I had taken notes so I could remember everything. There was a famous priest who won the Nobel Prize, and he was gunned down in church, and he fought for indigenous people. I think that a culinary student should know that history of class struggle in Latin America before they make those rice and beans, and to know all the different pieces that brought the rice and beans together. And I think they should know about enslavement and know about the kingdoms of West Africa, and should know about how human beings moved across the African continent in search of a meal, and should know about the connectivity between the West Indies, Black Latin America, Black Europe, and Black America and Africa, the Black Atlantic world, and beyond the Black Indian Ocean world,
Right.
which had a longer and more, in some ways, longer and more hidden trade in Black lives, creativity, and bodies,
Right.
and food. So I just want to put it like that, that we need that kind of curriculum. We need people to understand that technique and ingredients and flavors would be taught differently. And people go, "What's so special about that?" Please miss me with that. Please miss me with what makes you so special. People who don't like us come at us with that. What makes you so special? But they damn well know what makes us special because they can't do it.
And try
I
to
mean,
steal it
they
all the
don't feel
time.
it. They don't feel it. Now I can teach you. It's like culinary. It's like culinary jazz. I have to be able to be a good jazz. Anybody can be a wonderful jazz musician if they feel it.
Mm.
There's no borders around that, right? But you have to be able to feel your way through improvisation, through call and response, to be able to riff, to be able to like pick up on a moment where you can really subtly express through that instrument everything you're feeling, and the feeling of the piece at the same time, the feeling of the audience who is watching and interact with them. There are so many different parts to that. And then the offbeat phrasing. You know, when you hear that little drum and it out of nowhere and it's in the middle of a jazz piece, it's like, you know, that's it's not there because it's supposed to be all in rhythm. It's there because the instrument has something to say. It's the same thing with the cooking. I can lead you to the water, I can't make you drink. This is not about sous videing. We don't have names for these little bits and pieces of our process, but we do have a feeling and understanding that you must receive and get.
Mm.
Again, on your knees, hands open. You know, before you can go in the kitchen. So it's so important. When I went to Culinary Institute of America, I remember as a presenter, the black and brown students came down. And they were all up on me, hugging me, everything. And I didn't understand why. I wasn't special. And they said to me, "This is the only Black history we've gotten in the past 4 years we've been here."
Yep.
And I didn't,
Yep.
I mean, I was horrified. I was just like, wait a minute. But wait, then you talk about Brazil, then you talk about the South. Why not bring those together in one class, in one mandatory class? Because guess what? Guess what I had? All these other kids, the cooking that they wanted to do when they got out of culinary school was our cooking. They were like,
That's
what about,
right.
tell me more about Africa? And I said, now you know, you get
I
me.
think just we're gonna get caught off in a minute, but I think I've sort of come to the place where I'm thinking about the fact that culinary schools as they exist maybe aren't built for this level of expansive thought, right? Like, I think sometimes we put so much on institutions to be more
Yeah.
than what they are built for, and discount the power of spaces outside of it. So I don't know. I have had I've plotted a lot of things for my own work, but this is right on target for what the vision is, because I feel like there's this opportunity for us to have this sort of collective, I don't think is the wrong word, but this sort of collective brain trust, this sort of space that houses all of the thought and all of the writing and all of the brilliance outside of those spaces that aren't built for this work,
Yeah.
to be this home, this house for muse or inspiration for young people.
Before I leave this world, go Lord, don't let that be for a minute. I need to be a golden girl. I'm gonna establish a folk school.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, look at the work that Femi and them are doing up in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Those young people are learning some stuff. I still
Yep.
follow a lot of them on social media. They are really, sometimes we can take matters into our own hands and really, put these things into practice. I
Yeah.
mean, just because it's in a book does not mean it's preserved. Just because
Yep.
it's in online does not mean it's preserved. It is not
Yep.
preserved until it's preserved in you.
That part. That's a perfect way to end. We're gonna get the perfect. That's perfect.
Yes.
I love y'all. I love you, Michael. Thank you so much for doing this. We're gonna get
My
cut off,
sister.
but if you love this, go over to Black Food Folks the rest of the day. 1:00, Colleen is talking to Leslie Harville of Iconoclast Dinner. I think there's another talk at 2:00 with y'all. I'm messed up. I'm so full from this conversation. I don't remember the whole lineup, but just going over to Black Food Folks. Definitely at 1:00, there's Colleen talking to Leslie, but there are 3 more talks today. If you are interested in supporting the work that Black Food Folks does, their Cash App is Black Food Folks. Just, pass the church plate. But thank you so much, Michael. This has been beautiful.
Yes, ma'am. And y'all come join me at the Cooking Gene. Let's have a
Yes.
kiki.
Yes. Please follow Michael if you've not already. Wherever, like Cooking Gene, share
Social
the website.
on
Yep. But thank you.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.